The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to the first live logistics and marketing session for Digital Transformation World 2019. As you all know, my name is Tanya and I'm the Catalyst Program Manager here at TM Forum, and I'm your main point of contact for anything Catalyst related. So first of all, I'm just going to start with a few housekeeping items for today. So if you haven't joined one of our pre-recorded webinars before, the way that we usually run the session is that I will just deliver the content for the first 15 to 25 minutes, depending on how much content we have to cover during one session. And then at the end, I can either unmute you, or if you've made any questions throughout the session, I can go back to you and answer those. And there's two ways that you can do that. On your GoToWebinar station, you should see that there's a hand button. At the end, if you want to ask a question, I can unmute you if you press that particular button. Or you can also type the particular question. So for example, if you see something in a particular slide and you don't want to forget to make that question, you can make that question straight away and I can attend to it at the end of the webinar. This session will also be recorded, and we usually publish it within 48 hours of having delivered it. You will see that you will receive a series of invitations for the following logistics and marketing sessions. We always send two invitations per day that we do a session. So we always send one in the morning and one on the afternoon if you're based in Europe. So it means that for those based in Europe, you do have the option of which session to join. But let's say if you're based in Asia, it means that you'll be joining one your afternoon time, Europe's morning, or if you're based in the Americas, it means that you'll be attending one in Europe's afternoon and your morning. And it just gives the opportunity for everyone in every project just to attend if you want to actually join and just keep up with the activities happening between now and Nice, and to also be reminded of all the logistics and marketing tasks that the team needs to complete that are upcoming. So today we're going to be running a joint session, and the reason for that is because there's a few improvements that the forum has done into the Catalyst experience. And whilst they're a little bit more marketing related, it's actually quite important that the project leaders are aware of these changes, as it will affect a little bit the management of the team when you're actually getting to do your booth schedules or your theatre rosters, or who will speak. So it's actually really good that between the marketing lead and the project lead and co-lead, they all are aware of the changes and how everything will work during these year. But first of all, we're going to start with a little bit of event preparations, just some key dates that are good to keep in mind. We're going to move through to those marketing items that I had mentioned. And then at the end, in every session, I always go through the registration and travel and any points of contact that you might need throughout your Catalyst experience here with the forum. Now, all teams have now received contracts. There's very few organizations that might not have received those contracts yet, and those are the teams that have perhaps just joined the Catalysts over the past week or so. But anyone else that they are participating in the Catalyst, they all have received a Catalyst contract now. Now, it's really important that those contracts get returned as soon as possible. One of the upcoming deadlines that we have is this Wednesday with our printers. So anything where the Catalyst get marketed on paper, so for example, show guide, we have a hard deadline with the supplier this Wednesday. So if you don't receive your contracts by this point, you might have missed on that opportunity. Or let's say if you're a project leader, it might be that you have returned your contract, but it might be that someone in your team hasn't yet. So just be aware that if you get on site and that particular brand is not under your Catalyst, it might be that they didn't return those contracts on time. Now, if for a reason you feel like you should have received a contract, or maybe you did see the contract, but you no longer can find it on your inbox, feel free to reach to Caroline. She's part of our finance team and she manages all the Catalyst contracts that we have. And the email can be found now on the screen. Now, it's only once that you received those contracts that the TM Forum Events team will reach out to you for your logo, your organization description, but also those important complimentary codes for you to register your 2 complimentary passes for the event. So I'm aware that some of you actually reached out to us before your approver within your organization signed that contract, and unfortunately, until we have that Catalyst contract returned, we cannot provide you with your complimentary code. So just be aware of that, and if you could remind all of those that are project leaders, please remind your teams on your weekly calls just to make sure that they are returning those contracts, as it's become now a very time-sensitive item. Now, just as a reminder, the event will run from Tuesday the 14th of May to the Thursday the 16th of May, but there's some other key dates to take into account. So the teams can actually arrive on the Monday the 13th, and the show floor will be available to all of those that have their Catalyst passes to access the show floor between 1 to 7 p.m. And that will enable you as a project leader or your team to maybe come and do a dry run, come and test any equipment that you've brought, come and check that the screens work. So do make use of that time, especially for those teams that have been mostly working remotely. It's a really great time just to have that face-to-face meetup before you kick off the next day with your demos and Catalyst demonstrations. Now, every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, if you have a Catalyst pass, you can also access the show floor from 7:30 a.m. and that is just to enable setup. And actually, for the show days, Wednesday and Thursday, we ask the teams to be ready to go at 9. So we usually say that you need to be there by 8:30 latest and have everything set up by that point. For Tuesday, the first day, that's when it's slightly different. We have our opening keynote. So if you haven't attended the event, or perhaps you have, but this is where it's really important that you communicate the information that I distribute here with your team too. The opening keynotes, we tend to observe not many people on the show floor. So we usually tend to say that the teams don't really need to be there until those sessions break up. So that session will break up at 10:30. And again, just be aware, be there 15 minutes before, or perhaps come and set up, go and watch the sessions and then come back to your kiosk. But once that session breaks up, the show floor will become very busy. So as for you and your team not to miss up on any interactions, it's really important that you're ready to go by 10:30. And then we're also going to have your Catalyst Action Day on the 17th of May. That's the Friday. So all you need to do, you just need to bring your pass and come to the Acropolis. There's no extra fees. It's just a Catalyst Action Day workshop. We will take the first hour or so to really walk through our roadmap for the next 12 months. So let's say if you want to get involved with any other Catalyst initiatives over the next 12 months, we do give you an overview of what will be happening. We'll also review what has happened over the past 6 months on this current cycle. But the most valuable of this particular day is that we'll have our collaboration committee, subcommittee members to give you feedback, but also will give you valuable face-to-face time with your team. So these will be beneficial for different reasons. It might be that you finishing your Catalyst and actually will be a really good time to do a face-to-face download of the experience, or of what worked or what didn't work, and perhaps what it is that each one of you will take back to your organization. It could be that perhaps you are continuing to a phase 2, and even if it's for Nice 2020, it's still a good opportunity to sit down and perhaps with having still that fresh content from the feedback that you had from Nice, to really do already a map out of what will happen, even if you're not picking up on that work for another few months whilst you have that break. It could be that you continuing straight away for a Kuala Lumpur cycle, and if that's the case, this is incredibly valuable. Or it could be that maybe you're thinking of proposing a new idea, We will have all of our subject matter experts, and most of the TM Forum collaboration team will be there for your assistance. So do use that day, do use that space. We found from last year that was really, really valuable. Now, also just as a reminder, you can find the project plan for all the items the TM Forum will usually request between now and the event, or even a little bit after the event. You just need to go to your Confluence space. You'll see your project plan there, and you can just request, you can just go through each of the items. So, for example, if you're the marketing lead, you are able to focus on all of your items and what needs to be completed. They're all in a timeline, but you can also sort it in different ways as you see fit. It's really good, perhaps every week ahead of starting your weekly call, to go and see what it is, the tasks that the forum will be following up over the next week or 2 weeks, so that you and your team are prepared to deliver those items. Now, one of the things that is upcoming for the project leads and co-leads is that you will need to start completing your project charter. You can also find your project charter by going to your Confluence homepage, and on the navigation bar, there's a direct link for that charter. Charters are public as it is required by TM Forum bylaws. And we do understand that between now and the end of the project, that you're obviously still working on your solution, and that perhaps some of the information that you might be inputting might change. However, we are very aware that from mid-April onwards, the team will really focus on delivering the solution or delivering the objectives of the Catalyst, and that they are getting show ready too. And due to that, we find that it's a little bit hard for the teams to complete the charter at the same time as they have these other tasks. So to ease on the Catalyst workload, we just ask you to add as much information as you have now. And then let's say after the show, if something is really key has changed, then go back to it. But since we just have a snapshot as much as you can now, that should be sufficient for us to have these project charters in line with our requirements. Now, our team has already gone and helped out. There's a few sections that we were able to pre-populate from your submission. However, there's some areas that we didn't really have sufficient information to do so. Now, Confluence is quite a dynamic tool, so if any of the questions are better explained with maybe slideware that you already have produced, or perhaps with diagrams, you can upload those. It doesn't need to be in text. You can upload any sort of version or a document. Since their Confluence can take that particular upload of that document, you can add it to your project charter rather than writing it in full. So the project charter, we would like to have the first snapshot ready by the end of this week. And for those of you that don't complete it, then we'll start chasing you. But if you could just start adding, and if you do still need a few days, do let me know, so that we are aware that it is on your radar or on your team's radar and that you are completing it. Now, I would like to focus the next 5 to 10 minutes on the marketing items for your Catalyst. We covered some of these items during Action Week, but I'm going to go through a few of the changes and enhancements for this cycle. So just as a reminder, we've got a few deliverables that TM Forum produces for you and for your Catalyst. So right now, all of the teams have provided some sort of content to my colleague, Tandy, and over the next 2 weeks, we'll be producing your individual Catalyst web pages if they haven't been created yet for you. And we'll also be adding your Catalyst project overview to our Digital Transformation World event website. So you'll have that exposure via these two platforms. Now, some of you might have already been contacted by our Inform team. Some of you might be perhaps contacted a little bit later on the month. As we have 30 projects, we do stagger who we contact, but you will be reached out by one of my colleagues called Sarah Ray, and she'll be writing your article for your Catalyst. We will send you a little bit of information of what it is they will require, but Sarah will set up a 30-minute call with you and your team to go through the information that she needs to be able to produce this document for you. Then we also do some filming in Nice, and actually we do have a few different features that I will go into further detail later on. For those of you that are using the CurateFX platform, we will use our business scenario model onto our Catalyst digital brochure. And for those of you that have never been part of a Catalyst, perhaps you're a new team, or maybe you haven't been part of last year's Nice cycle, we actually created Catalyst digital brochure after Nice. And it's really important that you and your team provide us the information as soon as you have it. And let's say if you have your business scenario model concluded a week before the show, or perhaps if you have done an article and it's going through internal approval, so let's say maybe your champion needs to have their PR team looking at it, it's really important that you communicate into your team that these needs to be published. The quicker we are able to publish the information that you give us, the quicker it is for us to turn around this digital brochure ahead of the event. So do work with us, and if you do have any questions, let me know. And then there's a little bit more post-show. Let's say maybe in a few months' time, you have integrated these in your organization, or perhaps you've developed a new standard and you think that could be a good case study, and you would like to perhaps write a white paper or publicize it within the forum, then do reach out to our team, and we can connect you to our marketing to develop that. Now, one of the things that's exposure for the teams, it's obviously being part of the Catalyst Theatre. So in Nice, we create you a Catalyst Theatre. For those of you that have been at the show, it's usually on the third floor in the mezzanine space. We actually have moved this space to the show floor. Our stand builders are still working through those last visuals, but as soon as we have them, we will be sharing those with you so that you can see how it will look. But the theatre will actually now be in the show floor itself on level 3. You'll continue to get 20 minutes to showcase your project as you used to do before. But what we're hoping to do is to perhaps help you provide a more dynamic experience to our attendees, and thus having more interest in your Catalyst presentations and having then more people coming to your kiosks. Now, do remember, the purpose of the Catalyst Theatre presentation is not to give a full-on overview of your solution. Really, the trick is to promote your Catalyst, that people want to come to your kiosk to have that one-to-one conversation with you and your team. However, if you've been before, we usually have what I call the classic presentation. You can stand up in front of the audience and deliver slideware or a speech of 20 minutes, or maybe a speech of 15 minutes with questions and answers at the end. Now, over the next few weeks, what we will do is that this Wednesday we will have another marketing webinar where we will go through these different options in a little bit more in depth, but also Tandy from the team will reach out to you to work with your team on the best presentation format that fulfills these 20 minutes. So it could be that actually your team decides to have 3 to 4 of the participants and champions individuals on the stage, and they have a fire chart amongst themselves. So you can prepare what that fire chart will look like, but to the audience, it will just look, rather than just a presentation, to a more organic discussion about what it is that you've achieved doing your Catalyst. You can also utilize Tandy. She will be the MC or the presenter in the theatre, and perhaps you can work with her ahead of the event on a few questions that you'd like Tandy to ask, let's say maybe one of the participants or the champion, and also make the presentation more interactive as a discussion panel instead. We've also seen in some events where it's worked quite well that you just do a quick project overview for the first 5 to 10 minutes about this is the project, and also you turn it onto the audience to really do a more of a question and answers or a panel style discussion. Now that can be a little bit more tricky, and your team would have to work with Andy more in depth to really prepare to the different scenarios, or even how to direct the questions to take the conversation and discussion to what you want to achieve out of this presentation, as otherwise the discussion can really hand over to the audience rather than you in terms of where it really is going. However, we do have all of these different types of potential presentation styles that the team can now utilize. Now, I've only included a few. There's another 2 or 3, and let's say maybe you've seen something that you think that will work really well for your project. Since that we can cater for it and the space can accommodate the amount of people that you're thinking of bringing to the stage, we will be able to work with you for these needs. As I said, I just wanted to bring these to today's call, more of an introduction, just explaining what it is that we're trying to achieve by it and how a few of the ways that we might be able to do that for you, but also having the project leaders on the call so that they're aware that when you are now distributing the allocation of work at NICE, you are aware that these theatre, there's an opportunity to utilize it in a different way with your team. Now, the Catalyst videos are also going to slightly change. So previously, and we had a little bit of feedback over the past few years from the Catalyst teams there. You had the theatre presentation, you had a marketing video slot, you then had judges coming around to the Catalyst, and sometimes it just became very, very hectic. So we've decided to change a little bit how we're doing the video recording. One, to ease all of these timetable there the Catalyst ends up having during the show, but maybe to try different styles of recordings and how we're promoting your content. So at your theatre, despite of any different type of format that you take, for every single project, we're going to ask them, if they're not doing the classic presentation, for them to do a 5 to 8 minute overview of the project. So what is the project? Who's participating? What are the objectives? And it's up to the team if in that quick overview they want to give a 2 or 3 bullet point on what has been achieved, or if they prefer to leave that for the theatre, the remainder of the theatre presentation. However, that will be what our video team will be able to record. So we will have a video team also in our Catalyst Theatre, and they will record those first 5 to 8 minutes of the presentation. Very similar to what we used to do in the theatre, but it will look much more natural to those who are perhaps great speakers, but maybe you're not as well acquainted as being on the video, but also it will look a little bit more dynamic as you will be in a theatre. Then additionally, we actually will be recording a second video for the team, and this is actually an enhancement to the service that the forum has been providing to you Catalysts. So the second interview will be at your kiosk and it will be an interview style. So this is actually a great way. I know that sometimes project leaders or marketing leaders have a really big challenge of having all of the key contacts within your team, having some sort of spotlight. So these should be able to give you a few extra spots to rotate amongst your team who is speaking if you're having this sort of issue. So the second interview will happen at the Catalyst kiosk. The team will actually come to the kiosk itself. You will have allocated slots, but we'll make it a little bit more dynamic. So let's say if you're actually doing a good, if someone has come to your kiosk and you ended up giving them a good overview there, we can maybe change that a little bit over and it's more dynamic during the event. But essentially, we're going to have a video crew coming to your kiosk with a business analyst. They will have a few key questions that they're asking all the Catalysts, and they will ask between 1 to 2 people within your booth to answer those questions, and that will also be recorded and packaged and inputted into our different platforms, being our websites and social media, and for you to use post-event as well. So all of that will be available to you during this cycle. Now, I know that a few of these things are slightly different, so even if you're a project leader, if perhaps you want to understand a little bit more how these videos will work or how the Catalyst Theatre will work, then feel free to reach out to me and I can add you to the marketing webinars where we will be going through this content more in depth. Or we also record these sessions, as I said before, so you can maybe go and watch them on demand just to keep up with what's happening in those areas. Now, this is just a reminder, you will still have to have your different presentations for your Catalyst kiosk. Now, your marketing toolkit has been uploaded into your Catalyst space. So if you go to your homepage, if you're not seeing it, it could be that you might have too many people in your project. So it might be pushing that toolkit further down the page. So if you just scroll down, you'll see there's a white paper, there's a Catalyst flyer template for you to use, and there's the Catalyst template that every single team will need to use, especially for the theatre. So independent of who is in the project, for the purposes of the show, you do need to use our Catalyst template branded. And just to make it very fair, there's no other branding by any other organization. So it's the TM Forums event one that gets used for any Catalyst collateral. And as I said before, just do bear in mind, we will be going through these event presentations also more in depth, and we actually cover them both on the logistics and on the marketing webinars for different reasons. We focused on different areas, depending if you're a project leader or a marketing leader. But just be aware that you will need to create these different types of presentations, especially if you're a new team. Make sure that you're attending these webinars, as it will be really helpful as to when we start asking for these different items by email, you really know what it is that we're asking for. So with that, we're getting very much to the end of this first session. So just to remind you, do register and do make sure that you are arranging all of your travel plans according to the timetable that I shared earlier on during this call. Before the end of this week, when hopefully we do have the visuals from our stand builders, we will be doing a 15-minute quick all things Catalyst and event webinar that you can share with every single person in your team, so that they have all of this information and they can go and watch it in their own accord, so that they also know exactly when they can arrive, and all the information I'm giving here, but that might be relevant to all of those in your team, that you can just share the link with them rather than you having to reiterate what I'm communicating. But until we get that done for you, just be reminded, everyone that's in your team that does sign those contracts, they will get those 2 passes to access the event. If you know that anyone in your team is having issues with their contracts, then, as I said before, do contact Caroline, and I will share her email again in 2 seconds. And if you see that anyone has any questions regarding registration, or they're a little bit confused about what happened, just tell them to contact our events team on expo@tmforum.org, and they'll be able to organize descriptions, passes, and etc. If you or anyone in your team is looking for more passes, the forum does every year a 20% discount on gold passes, and that's the code for Catalysts. You can use it on anyone on your team or for any of your clients. So since you've got that code, you can just share it. Remind your team to be at action day, and to make sure that they factor that into your travels. It's really good that you start reminding them now, and that you tell them they will be good for you, for your team to be there, so that you can continue your work. And if anyone is still looking for accommodation and travel, we do have some good resources on our website. I've included the quick links there, so feel free to visit those pages. And as I said, we've now come to the very end of the session. Here's our main key contacts, should you need it. And again, if you're not quite sure who to contact, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm your main point of contact, and most of the time I'll be able to help you, or at least direct your question to who needs to know. So with that in mind, we have reached the very end of the session. So I know that we might have run a little bit over time. And if anyone has any questions that they would like to make, or perhaps if there is something that you're thinking or that hasn't made sense during this call, just let me know. I can unmute you. Your question might be someone else's or another team's question too. So feel free to ask us any questions from now on. And I will just give it another few minutes for those who would like to ask any questions. Okay, great. And as I said before, we will be sending a few further invites to marketing leads and project leads and co-leads. If you're a marketing lead, you'll be invited to the marketing webinars. If you're a project lead or co-lead, you'll be invited to the logistics calls. Now, there is actually a direct link for you to register directly onto the webinar. So if you actually would like other people in your team to attend, feel free to share the meeting invitation, but also feel free to send them that registration link for them to attend. And very finally, we will be having a joint call very similar to this one just before the event, and that call will be very much open room just for question and answers and anything that you might need ahead of the event. So I've had 2 questions through, so if you just give me 2 seconds. So the location of the Catalyst kiosks from Ashley. So we usually don't provide the exact location of the Catalyst kiosks until mid-April. And there's a few reasons for that. Especially projects that are on phase 1, they are still working through some of their use cases, and we try to have a Catalyst overall story. So we usually wait until usually about now, and this is when we start grouping the Catalysts into different themes. We do have 3 different Catalyst areas, one on level 3, and 2 areas on level 2 that are quite near to each other. And we usually try to group the Catalyst within 3 different main topic areas. As soon as we do have those exact locations, we usually do share it on the logistics and marketing webinar, and we also make it available online. And in terms of marketing webinars, no, there haven't. This is actually the first session that we have, and we'll be having the second session next Wednesday, and the invitations will be going out later on today. And for the topic categories this year, Ashley, that's a really good question. So usually we do ask the catalysts, we do have usually main areas that the forum is exploring or focus areas that the forum would like the catalysts to focus on. However, catalysts are essentially member work. So it's the members that really direct that discussion. So we usually since it's a good idea, since it's an innovation in the industry, we do let the projects really be at the forefront of where that catalyst discussion will lead them or what that solution will move to. So what it means is that at this point in the year, we get together with the project managers that are working with the individual projects, and we ask them what areas they are falling under, and then we try to create a common theme for 3 kind of groups. So for example, we usually tend to have customer experience, but let's say if this area there's actually more projects focusing on AI, it might be that we develop our track more AI centric. These will be something that our team will be working between now until mid-April, now that the teams have settled and really started the work. Most teams only really start work, especially if they're cycle 1, around March time. So we do need to give them a little bit of time to settle down and work out their final use cases before we can start working on these grouping. Great. So I can see that I've taken an extra 5 minutes of your time. If you have any more questions, or if you'd like me to unmute your line, you still have a few minutes to do so. And if not, I think that this might be it for today. Thank you so much. And again, if you do have any questions, if there's something that isn't quite making sense, do feel free to reach out for me. And just as a reminder, we will be uploading a recording of this webinar, but also the slides that we use, we also will be uploading them. So if you just want to copy one of the slides and share it with your team, we also make that content available, and we will share that with all of those of you that have attended today. And let's say if maybe you had a colleague that couldn't attend, we will also send that to them. Oh, hang on. So I think we've got a question from Tracy. So I'm just going to unmute Tracy. Hi, Tracy, you're now unmuted. I think you've put your sign to ask a question.
Yeah, you actually answered. I was just wondering if there had been any previous webinars for marketing. So that's fine.
Okay.
I'm up to date. That's great.
Okay.
Thanks a million.
Perfect. Thank you. And hang on. So I have another question from Vilamani. Hi, Vilamani. Oh, I've just unmuted you.
Thank you, Tanya. It was good. And just one couple of quick questions, as it is the first time we have this catalyst. Do we have any reference catalyst that are videos or any other things that we could refer from the last year's event?
Yeah, sure. So if you go to actually our Catalyst webpage, and if you give me 2 seconds, I'm just going to pause the sharing here, and I'm just going to bring the webpage so that the team can see. So if you actually go to tmforum.org, we actually have a library of all the projects that showcase in previous events. So you can go and see what it was recorded. So for example, so I've just opened here. So if you go to our event website and you go to our tmforum.org website, and you come to the Catalyst pages, you can actually go to past Catalyst projects, and you can see all the projects from previous years. So for example, and we usually put a little note on the ones that won Catalyst Awards as well. So that means that they've done something good. So they're the good ones to look for. They're all very interesting, but they obviously did maybe something a little bit more enhanced than the other ones. And you can click here, you can see what they've submitted to us as descriptions, and you can see what it was created in terms of videos. However, do bear in mind that we have changed, as I mentioned on the webinar today, and we will be recording those overviews at the start of the Catalyst Theatre. And we will be running that in more detail over the next webinars on how the team can best achieve that. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe then we'll look into that in the next webinar, and if you have any questions, we'll raise it for that. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Great. So I think that's it for today. I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for attending, and I do really appreciate having staying over time. Do watch out for those webinar further meeting invitations coming through. And if you feel that actually any of these sessions are valuable to anyone else in your team, make sure that you're forwarding that resource center once that it comes available with this first uploaded webinar. So with that, have a rest of a great week, and I'll be speaking to you very shortly. Take care.